The cartoonist Ann Telnaes was going to put up a cartoon in the Washington Post, and to the side here is a rough version of what she was going to plan, of what she was going to draw, and the Washington Post rejected the cartoon because it depicts various media and tech titans, most notably Jeff Bezos, groveling before a statue of President Donald Trump. And the decision has ignited the wider debate about the role of satire in journalism, censorship under the guise of editorial judgment, and the troubling influence of billionaires in shaping public discourse. This cartoon needs to be put in the broader context of other offensive or allegedly offensive cartoons, such as the infamous Mohammed cartoons in Charlie Hebdo and the Guardian's anti-Semitic caricatures. Telnaes' rejected cartoon shows Bezos, Zuckerberg, and Altman kneeling before Trump, symbolizing corporate submission to political power, and also Mickey Mouse, symbolizing Disney's submission. And while satire thrives on exaggeration, it also functions as a mirror reflecting uncomfortable truths. And in this case, it highlights the transactional relationship between media owners, their business interests, and Trump's ascendancy, and the role of Trump in over the next 4 years. This cartoon was biting but necessary, especially when Bezos's decision to block the Post from endorsing Kamala Harris during the election was a significant call. And the cartoon exposes how billionaires whose actions directly influence public opinion, like Elon Musk, suppress dissent when it threatens their personal or their corporate agendum and their reputation. We shouldn't be that surprised that this story comes out at the same time as the story about Elon Musk and Farage. If these billionaires don't like what someone is saying, then they pull the rug from under them. They pull out their money, or they strut around in a hissy fit. This is different to the other two instances that I've referenced. First of all, the Charlie Hebdo story in 2015, I think, where these cartoons sparked global outrage, protests, and tragically a terrorist attack on the magazine itself. And advocates of free speech defended Charlie Hebdo's right to publish, arguing that no subject, whether religious or political, should be immune to criticism and mockery. But critics decried the cartoons as deliberately provocative and offensive. I think they were deliberately provocative and offensive, but I'm also not completely sure that they deserve to be censored into non-existence. And their continued relevance over the next few years, particularly in schools, has been a problem. But we have to acknowledge the role of censorship, we have to acknowledge the role of propaganda, and we have to acknowledge the importance of consideration, offence, as well as the right to provoke discussion. I think the Charlie Hebdo cartoons are of a different order to this. The Guardian's anti-Semitic cartoons, the cartoon particularly by Steve Bell, depicting Benjamin Netanyahu manipulating British politicians, which drew accusations of perpetuating anti-Semitic tropes. The cartoon of, I can't remember the name of the fellow now, with the picture of Boris Johnson in the background, and the pig. These cartoons are being condemned again for their anti-Semitic traits, and again, I think one has to tread very carefully. But again, this is not in the same realm. This is a cartoon that has literally been censored because of its political impact. I think a case could be made for the suppression of the Charlie Hebdo cartoons. A case can be made for the suppression of the Guardian cartoons, a case cannot be made for the suppression of Telnaes cartoon. And she says that it's a betrayal of the very principle of the Washington Post, which claims to champion democracy dies in darkness. This is not about bias against reputation, as the editorial page editor David Shipley claimed. Rather, it's about the creeping influence of billionaires like Bezos, whose financial entanglements with Trump's administration render any criticism of his actions or their actions inconvenient. And rejecting Telnaes' work sets a dangerous precedent. It signals that satire, thoughtful humour, is acceptable only when it targets the right people, or more accurately, the people who don't sign your paychecks. And this is a textbook example of anticipatory obedience, where media outlets self-censor to curry favour with powerful figures, whether they are Trump or Bezos or Elon Musk or Farage or Starmer, it doesn't matter, or Zuckerberg. This controversy, or Disney, this controversy also reflects a broader pattern of appeasement. And Bezos is dining with Trump, Zuckerberg's donations to his inauguration, and Mickey Mouse's symbolic bow in the cartoon illustrate the disturbing normalization of power collusion, where media moguls suppress criticism to protect their financial interests, and the public loses trust, therefore, in journalism as an independent arbiter of truth, or at least of honesty. I think there's a difference between honesty and truth. For example, we expect our politicians to be honest, or at least to be honourable. I don't think it's reasonable to expect our politicians to be truthful, and there's a difference between the two. To be honourable and to be honest, not to be caught lying, not to be caught deceiving, not to be to try not to deceive, to try not to lie, but to be honourable. The Post over 200,000 subscribers have been lost after Bezos blocked Harris's endorsement. This isn't just a business decision, it's a crisis of credibility, and a newspaper cannot claim to defend democracy while muzzling its own journalists and its cartoonists. If it can't survive with reasonable satire, then maybe it needs to close. Because satire isn't mere entertainment, it's a critical weapon that goes back to 400 years, 4 centuries before Christ. It's a critical weapon in the arsenal of a free press. It's the stuff of Aristophanes. It simplifies complex power dynamics by making them accessible to the public, and by mocking them. It holds a mirror to society's flaws, and by stifling Telnaes' voice, the Post weakens its ability to challenge authority, and it leaves us with a watered-down commentary that is safe but utterly irrelevant, lifeless, insipid, flaccid. What can we learn? Media institutions need to reclaim their independence, even if it means risking the anger of their billionaire owners. Editorial cartoonists like Telnaes should not have to choose between integrity and employment. A free press must have room for dissent. It must have room to cause offence. It must have room to generate discomfort, or it risks being a mouthful simply for the powerful. The words of George Orwell, should be embossed above every cartoonist's desk. If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. And Telnaes' resignation is a stark reminder of what happens when that liberty is compromised, not by government censorship, but by the cowardice of those who claim to uphold the liberty, by the cowardice of those people who claim to be promoting the virtues of journalism, the virtues of a free press, the virtues of artistic expression. You may not agree with everything that is printed or everything that is said. I hope you don't. I hope it generates debate. Everything that is said here. I may not agree with what I said yesterday. I change my mind, as quickly as a London taxi apparently can spin on a dime. And I do so because I think we should explore every facet of an issue. We should try to push aside this desire to entrap people in teams or tribes, because that way is not the way of truth. And why do I mention this thing about being honourable? Being honourable is more important than being truthful. Why? Because truth is something that often is only evident with hindsight. But honour is something that we can be aware of in the moment. Truth is about having all the facts, and we very rarely have all of those. And so you get to this ridiculous thing of the Prince Harry and Meghan thing about my truth, your truth. Well, actually there are many truths, because we observe things differently. And what may appear to be true to me may appear to be different, a falsehood to you. Only hindsight will give us true clarity. But in the meantime, if one is behaving honourably, that misconception can be handled with dignity. And that correction can be handled with dignity. And that discovery of what was genuinely happening is called history. And it's something to treasure. And even when we write it, even when we read it, it changes as well. There isn't a fixed truth. This is a fantasy of the stubborn. There is no such thing. There is no fixed truth. And there is no absolute certainty. Scientific truth is only true until somebody proves it wrong. Mathematical truth is fairly watertight, but even there it depends what system we're using and so what is the baseline of the mathematical understanding. But yeah, maths can be reconciled. Different mathematical approaches can be reconciled. But you have to know what system you're using. Are you using a system based on letters or a system based on Indian numbers, Arabic numerals? It took the Caliphate of Baghdad to unite those two systems in the 7th or in the 8th century, long after they had both been functioning quite ably on their own. Truth takes time. Being honourable is something we can do now, and the honourable thing to do with this cartoon was to publish it.